welcome back to my channel. So today I have a Sims 4 speed build for you, and I decided that I wanted to build a restaurant. I don't typically build like community lots or things like that, but I don't know, I felt like I really wanted to, and I decided that I wanted to make it like a country kitchen, like really like home cooked meal kind of thing. So I ended up putting it in Henford, Bagley. So it's a lot of cottage living. So a lot of those pieces you're gonna see here, which obviously it just fit really well, but I actually really loved how it turned out. I added like vines of like the grapes, or that's what they look like anyways, and a lot of like purple accents on the outside, and we even have like a nice seating area outside, and as well as like a trellis kind of thing going on above it with a lot of vines and things. So I think it looks really rustic and really adorable. And I actually also included like that pub kind of bar that they had in cottage living, and I think it fit really well here. I wasn't initially thinking I'd want to put that in here, but I decided I wanted to. I don't think it really functions like as part of a restaurant in terms of like people like sitting there and having like a bartender, but you can hire a bartender. So, you know, it can still function as a bar. It just won't be part of the restaurant mechanic, but you can use it that way. And it just felt kind of really appropriate and it just fit really well there. And the kitchen is not super huge because honestly, the restaurant isn't super huge. There's a few tables outside and a few inside, but there's not like a ton of seating. So you probably shouldn't need more than 2 chefs is what at least I expect anyways. Of course you can add more, expand the build if you want to add stuff to it. And this is already up on the Sims 4 gallery, so feel free to download it and kind of use it however you want or change it or whatever you want to do. It is under my ID, Spice and Sprinkles, all one word, all lowercase, and it's down in the description if you would like to see it written out. And I kind of was messing around. I've not really used the roofs that came with cottage living, but I felt like it was really nice here. And then again, I used a lot of the brick that came with it, and I kind of just picked like a foundation that I felt like matched since it didn't have one from cottage living, and then just keeping a lot of like green and brown tones in there. And then trying to find some landscaping that worked was kind of difficult because this is, I believe, a 20 by 15 lot, so it's not huge, but I do end up putting a tree over in the corner because I just really wanted it to like feel really cozy and blend really nicely into the surrounding like vegetation that's here. So I did use one of those like birch trees that you kind of see off in the corner. So I used one of those, and then I did my best to use as many of those vines as I could. I did put some on the like trellis, like gazebo-y kind of thing. I don't even know. I'm like, why can I not think of the word for that? Anyways, on the porch. And I also just put a lot of bushes out front, and I pulled in some like purple flowers underneath the bushes, so it kind of tied in with the purple and the vines. And then I did put like an extra fence up, so like you can't get to the seating on the porch unless you like go through the restaurant. I felt like that kind of made sense. I feel like normal restaurants, you know, you're not supposed to go into that area unless you're being seated there. So, I mean, Sims still kind of do whatever they want, so, you know, but I think usually if you actually are using the restaurant, they like go to the host or hostess just like immediately and they get seated that way. And then I do end up putting in a bar a little bit later, which I was really excited about using and I think fit really well here. And then I actually ended up, for the screenshots, which I highly recommend checking out at the end of the video, I actually ended up utilizing the restaurant mechanic and like having people come and sit. I will say the people that came did not really enjoy my restaurant because it was brand new, but don't judge my build for that. I just didn't like spend a whole lot of time making it like an amazing restaurant before I took my screenshots. But I just have gotten really into like actually having Sims utilize the build when I take my screenshots. I feel like it gives it a really nice like life, if that makes sense. Like it's actually being used and everything, and I guess it's kind of my way of incorporating Sims because I don't do a ton of gameplay, which I kind of want to get into, and I just don't know what I'd want to do if I did Sims gameplay, if that makes sense. I do have like other builds up on my channel, and I also have like build challenges, and I have some more coming to the channel over the next month or so, so be on the lookout for those, and like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video and you want to see these videos, old ones and new ones to come. And so I'm just adding some lighting outside because to me it's really important for the lot to be lit at night, especially if you're actually going to utilize this as a restaurant and people are going to be sitting outside. I feel like it makes sense that there's actually light outside if you want to have your restaurant functioning at night. And it did come out to be about 45,000 simoleons, so like not too horrible, especially considering a lot of my other builds that I make. I feel like they tend to be a little bit pricey. And then we have just in the front a little seating area when you walk in the door. I'm thinking like if you're waiting to be seated, like that's the place that you would hang out, that kind of thing. Or just for general socialization for Sims. And then we just have 2 bathrooms here in the front. I figured that was enough since it's not like a huge restaurant, and that should work just fine. And then we just have the hostess station over like in that little nook that I've created. And then I end up putting one of those like kind of like a menu board behind the hostess station, because I feel like it would be maybe a place like you would put your specials and that kind of thing. And I kind of got this idea because I went out to eat the other day, and there's a restaurant chain where I live called Cracker Barrel, and it's like this like rustic country kitchen kind of place, and they always have their specials hanging behind the hostess station, so I just thought that would be a really nice touch. And I also use a little bit of their inspiration for their decor in the dining space. So if you've ever been to that restaurant, you understand what I'm about to describe. Literally, this restaurant has just nothing but like paraphernalia and just like all this like old or antique stuff all over the walls, like posters, old farming equipment, like instruments, like anything they could find. I feel like they put on these walls. Like I literally always think about like I couldn't imagine having to like dust or clean all of the stuff that are on the walls. Like that would be so difficult. But anyways, so I kind of used some of that inspiration inside the dining space next to the fireplace that I put in there, because I felt like that would be nice and warm and cozy to use while your Sims are eating. Hopefully it doesn't like catch on fire and burn down your whole restaurant while it's like being used. That would kind of be terrible. Although I guess I don't put it past the Sims to like catch everything on fire, because I feel like they do that all the time. And then in this back space I have 2 entrances to the kitchen along with the 2 like waiter stations, and there is another station out on the porch if you have multiple, like they're not necessarily having to run all over your build. And I have 2 stations, and then I figured like these wine racks would be appropriate because it looks like grapes hanging on the vines outside, and like maybe that's just something they have here. And then for this space, like I said, I ended up putting the fireplace in there, but I felt like I didn't want to be able to see like the doors of the kitchen and the waiter stations, so I ended up putting these walls up. And then as I was going through all this stuff in the game, I was like, oh my gosh, the bar fits so perfectly between these 2 walls, like, and then I felt like I had to use it. So that's where the bar ends up, and I think it actually gives a really nice look to the place, and I really liked how it turned out. And I ended up bringing in that, like, I think it's called like a chef signature on the wall, but that's in like the main area, and it's back in this area as well. I figured that would make sense to have on the wall back there. And then so just space for your Sims to hang out. And then there's also doors so your Sims can still get to where they need to go in terms of actually waiting on the people in your restaurant. So I really wanted to put a rug in here just to like break up all of the like brown tones in the room. I always think it's interesting when you have carpet and rugs in restaurants, because I'm like, wouldn't that just get like super dirty and having to clean it? But you know, it is The Sims, and we don't have to worry about that because they can magically clean up messes and there will be no stains left behind. So I'm just adding a few little cozy tables. All the tables are these smaller ones. I didn't have any huge ones, so the max party is like 4 people that you could have at a seating space. Of course, if you wanted a more communal like table, you could actually replace these for a larger one in the center, but I just left them as smaller parties. And this is the wall where I was like, I don't know what I want to put on it. So that's when I had the idea of doing this like eclectic thing, because I had those and I hated that I couldn't like change it, just the swatch, like it just, nothing seemed to work quite right. I thought about a mirror, but then I was like, it just didn't feel like it belonged here, if that makes sense. So I just ended up having a bunch of stuff on the wall, and I think it looks really nice this way. It's kind of rustic and kind of matches, I think, the bar area that's just got kind of has some pictures and things like that. I thought about putting some vines in here, but for some reason the lighting was horrible with that object, so I opted not to use it, but I did try it. And then we end up just putting some candles and other like knickknacks on the fireplace. Again, kind of like that cozy country feel. And then just kind of arranging all those things on the wall. I thought about putting that like crochet item on the wall, but it just didn't have a swatch that made sense to me, like for this build. And then, like I said, we're just adding some little like things, like there's a bunny, a bread box, like all these things. And then for the tables, I just ended up putting like little flowers on them. And then I just made each of them like different colors because I felt like that kind of made sense. And then the outside of the build ends up looking very similar in terms of like I use the same tables out there and all that kind of stuff. Of course, if it rained, it might be a problem. I'm not sure actually how that would work. I guess like either Sims that are out there would be miserable or they wouldn't pay attention to it. I mean, I'm honestly not sure. So just adding a few flowers to brighten up the place a little bit and then just kind of leaving it at that. I didn't add too much more in here. And then like I said, for the outside, I put another waiter station out there, a place for like firewood, and then just a couple of tables. So if you have stuck around this long, be sure to give this a like and subscribe if you want to see more like it, and leave any suggestions you have down in the comments. So I hope you have a really sweet day. Bye, everybody.